Maybe you don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build, 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 this time power, this time to build power, this time to build power, this time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton.
And I'm Nathan Drolet.
And together we form George Foreman. Yeah. I was going to say Joe Frazier, but George Foreman just sounded better after we form George Foreman.
Is it because right behind me is a grill and you were looking at a grill when you said that?
Maybe. Maybe George has entered my psyche to that level. That anytime I see a grill, even though it's a vintage Weber, I think of George Foreman. So we're sitting here tonight in Cincinnati, Ohio, wrapping up our workshop tour, and my daughter is on a date inside the house, so we're sitting out here at the picnic table recording a podcast.
Getting eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. However, she just brought us ice cream.
So it's all cool.
Which works out. And we're multiple beers deep. So this could become a little belligerent. But Nate came up with a serious topic. Good topic. And the topic for today is the top 3 ways we've invested in ourselves. And that can be monetarily, it can be emotionally, it can be
with time.
However you've invested. That's the question here. So I started off the last one.
Oh, God.
So
all right.
So it's
See
your
where
turn.
this is going?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and throw up a bit of a softball answer here. But this was something that to me initially it seemed like a no-brainer, but it paid off massively, and that was taking up an internship at a strength and conditioning facility.
With Paul.
Yes. I was working a ton at the time, washing windows.
Totally not a softball answer, dude.
Yeah. Well, I guess to me at the time it made a bunch of sense. So I had talked on the last podcast about how I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and every strength coach, you know, when they were asked, hey, if you could recommend anything to someone who is new to this game, what would it be? And they all said, hire a coach. Like, have someone else run you through that learning curve so that you don't have to. I mean, this is something I think about with climbing. Man, if I knew what I know now with climbing, yeah, it would be so easy to get to where I am now, except for not with like a whole string of injuries that I had along the way and all these different things. So the idea of hiring a coach, I was like, that's perfect. So I wanted to understand lifting. So I ended up running into Paul at TBA one day, and I knew he was a strength coach, but didn't know a ton about it. So we talked back and forth. I was like, cool. And so we started working together, and then he offered me an internship position.
This was right around the same time that Paul and I were starting on the kettlebells for climbers thing, right?
I think it was a little
somewhere right around there.
Close to. It was a little prior to that, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so he offered me the position. I was working a lot doing what I was doing already, but I mean, to me, it was an opportunity to keep learning. So I was like, oh, of course, like this is something I was really passionate about. And so it made sense. But I didn't realize just how much of a door that would open and how much that would lead me down the road. So I'd say, even though it felt like an obvious investment at the time, it's been one of the biggest payoffs for me.
Yeah, I think sometimes those things aren't super obvious, you know, like it seemed like, you know, a good thing for you to be doing to, you know, further your training ideas. But ultimately it's led to this, you know, there's a possibility that now this is your, you know, eventually this could be your career.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool that you just sort of stumbled upon that just by following what you thought you wanted to do. I think that's pretty cool. And you can't really ask for a better dude to hook up with.
Oh no, not at all. Like I was super fortunate that it all kind of fell into place.
All right. So my first way that I've invested in myself, in my top 3, is I made climbing and training a priority. And this is a big pet peeve of mine now. I don't know that it was a conscious effort when I first did it, so I let it slack off, and I eventually quit climbing. Or when I was first climbing, I climbed a ton all the time. I loved it, and then I eventually quit. So I don't think it was a conscious effort that it was a priority for me. But ultimately, I came back to climbing because a man that I really admired, John Bernal, who was the original author for the Red River Guidebooks, and he was kind of an old school Red River guy that I looked up to. He made a comment on a public forum that Chris is not an overachiever, he's an underachiever, and he does just enough to get noticed, and then he bails. And I read that, and it stung.
I can imagine.
Because it was true, and I had done that in so many different pursuits. I'd done it in breakdancing, I'd done it in rapping, I'd done it in skateboarding, I'd done it in so many things where I did just enough for people to take notice, and then I would move on to something else. So when John passed away, I decided the way I needed to honor him and to respect myself was to give whatever I could give to climbing and becoming better at climbing. So what I did is I made it a priority. I said, instead of maybe I'll go climbing Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on the weekends, if nothing else better comes up, instead I said, I'm going climbing Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, these days on the weekends, regardless of what else comes up. And I lost girlfriends because of that. I distinctly remember dating a girl who called me and said, do you want to hang out tonight? And I was like, no, it's Tuesday. And she was like, well, you can skip one night. And I was just like, click. Sorry.
Not for anaerobic capacity, I can't.
But I had expressed to her that these were my goals. These were my dreams. This is what I really wanted to do. And she didn't respect those at all. And the woman I'm with now, Annalisa, I was very upfront with her in the beginning. Like, I have these goals. These are the days I go to the gym. These are the days I'm with my daughter. Those days are not negotiable. If you're moving to Cincinnati, I will spend as much time with you as I can, but those times are not negotiable. And she respected that. And because of that, I've softened my stance a little bit, and she started climbing. So it definitely worked out that I stuck to my guns there and really made a priority out of climbing and progressing my climbing. And I just don't think that's the natural go-to for people. I hear people all the time say, oh, well, I was going to go, but I don't have time tonight. And I'm like, whatever it was that came up, that's the thing you shouldn't have time for. Like, it just came up last minute. So unless it's an emergency, unless it's your child or your parents or, something that you care massively about, if it's just, my friends are going bowling, then maybe you should stick to what you set out to do.
Sure.
So that's it for me.
All right. So my number 2 is, and this is where I started going a little bit away from training, was actually This is a two-part answer.
Wait, you're going away from training.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there something else other than training?
Did you not just hear me? I said pick your priorities. Oh, and by the way, let me pick your priorities for you. They're training.
Training is your top priority, and second priority is training.
Yes. So it was actually buying a Kindle and then later getting putting myself through a speed reading course. And this sounds ridiculous to most
I'm not
people.
even sure what to say about that.
No, exactly. So I was horrified of reading for the longest time. I had a terrible vocabulary through all of school, middle school, high school, college. I was always in like higher level classes, except for English. I was in the most remedial English possible. Like I didn't have to read books in high school.
That's because you were from Texas.
No, we had.
I'm
Yeah.
totally kidding. No shade thrown at Texas.
Yeah, we just read the Texas Constitution all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. And all the pretty horses.
Now you're throwing shade at Texas.
I love all the pretty horses. It's my favorite Cormac McCarthy book. Back to where we were. So after I graduated college, I had probably only read maybe 3 books outside of what was required for school at that time on my own. Like
Wow.
I hated reading.
They were all written by Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. What was it? What were we talking about the other day? Cat in the Hat? How there's only 50 individual words in Cat in the Hat?
Yeah,
That's pretty impressive.
it's impressive.
So I only had to know 50 words.
Sorry, I keep derailing you. I'm going to let you talk now.
Okay. So I'd probably only read maybe 3 or 4 books on my own before graduating college. I hated reading. I was super slow, terrible vocabulary, and the fuck if I was going to use a dictionary to figure out what words meant. And right after college, I ended up getting a Kindle, which you can just press down on the word and it gives you the definition.
Yeah, you just showed me that. That's cool.
It's amazing. Yeah. And so immediately my vocabulary just exploded. And suddenly I liked reading a lot. But I was a really slow reader. So I bought a book on speed reading and immediately, quadrupled my speed of being able to read and comprehension. So now I can actually remember things from books much better than ever before. So since then, I've gone through over 100 plus books, which for some people that's not many, but for me it's been awesome. Like I actually enjoy reading. I've learned so much more, and it's funny because both combined. A Kindle was maybe $80. Like the book for the speed reading was maybe like $13 and 6 weeks of 30 minutes a day. And since then, like I've learned a monstrous amount, and it's something that to me that was a force multiplier. Like I will continue to reap the benefits of that forever. Like I will always be able to read faster. I'll always have a larger vocabulary. I'll keep learning forever, like as long as I'm alive. Like that's awesome. So to me, that's been one of the most beneficial things for me.
Cool. When do you apply the speed reading? Like, do you read everything in that quadrupled speed?
Pretty much. It's interesting too, because I think about this with speed climbing. Because, so for instance, the way you learn how to type fast.
Yeah. See, it's funny. I thought about it as far as eating. Like
speed eating.
I like to eat really fast.
I'm really good at that too.
But there are times when I really like to enjoy what I'm eating. Like the ice cream we just ate. Even though I ate it really fast, I enjoyed the hell out of it. So I'm just curious, do you ever read at a normal pace anymore?
Well, so here's the thing.
Or is that your normal pace?
It's become my normal pace.
Ah.
Because you practice at a much faster pace. So for instance, when I was practicing, I would practice at, let's say, reading 1,200 words a minute, which is beyond what I could read. So when I pulled it back to, let's say, 500 words per minute, it felt like I was reading on the beach, and it's the most casual thing possible.
Oh, right.
So it is pretty cool. There's a lot of different tips for comprehension and things like that to help you be able to tie things together. And for me, it was awesome. Like it's so much more enjoyable. And I can't say enough. Like I hated books so much. And now it's crazy that I went so long without them.
That's pretty cool. I used to really love reading, and maybe I should look into your speed reading ideas because I just feel like I don't have time
Mm-hmm.
anymore to read. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, number 2, numero dos, for me is, and I'm sticking with the climbing and training theme here.
Good for you. I'm not.
You sort of are because you read a lot of books that apply to climbing and training.
Good
So
to-
I decided that rest and recovery is training.
Ooh, that's a good one. I should have
And-
thought of that.
I know you should have, but you didn't.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just, it never occurred to me a long time ago. And it took a lot of effort, really, to convince myself that resting and doing any type of recovery activity, be it self-myofascial release or getting a massage or light recovery climbing or whatever it might be,
Maybe some jogging.
or eating ice cream,
Yeah.
is part of training. and I think that was huge. A big light bulb went off, and since then my climbing and my training and my life in general has been drastically improved.
Yeah, I definitely fully second that. When I started prioritizing sleeping and amazingly hydration, for me, that's
Hydration's been big, yeah.
such a huge
Sleeping,
factor
I have
in my
no
climbing.
comment on.
Yeah, I can sleep like a champ.
Yeah, I
But,
sleep like a loser.
Yeah.
Completely like a loser. But it's something I know I need to get better at because it's part of rest and recovery, and it's part of performance. It's part of being the best me that I can be. And definitely on this workshop tour, I've been horrible about it. While I was in Lander, I was actually pretty good, but I need the influence of Annalisa, of my fiance, because she loves to sleep and she can go to bed really early and and then not wake up until really late. So she's really good at it. I suck horribly at it. I don't go to bed. So around here last night, for instance, we all kind of exited the kitchen from making tacos and eating ice cream and drinking. We eat a lot of ice cream and drink around here, don't we?
A lot of burritos.
A lot of burritos.
Sometimes we
it's
mix
all
it with
Mexican,
tacos.
then ice cream, then beer, or Mexican,
This
then
has been
beer,
a
then
great
ice
clinic tour.
cream. But anyway, we all exited at like 12:30 or 1, and I probably didn't go to sleep until 3:30 or 4
Damn.
because I worked on music for a little while and I wrote for a little while, and I just couldn't. There was no reason for me to go to sleep because I still had energy. That's how I feel, and that's tough for me. So I'm trying to get better at that, and not being with my fiance right now, that definitely makes it harder because I tend to stay up a lot later without her. So yeah, but that's part of my rest and recovery that I've recognized. I'm just not doing a very good job right now of keeping that in check.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I think it's important. I've definitely seen massive benefits when I'm consistent with sleep, hydration, and just all the things you always hear about. But man, when you're consistent with them, it goes such a long ways. Just, yeah, I'm actually surprised I didn't have that on my list now.
And it's not a magic bullet. I think that's the tough thing. I think that's why it probably wouldn't show up on most people's lists because it's not like an obvious payoff. You really have to look at what's going on and say, "Oh, shit, I'm performing better. How did that happen?"
Yeah. And it's not like, oh, I got 1 hour or an extra hour of sleep for 2 days. Suddenly I'm
right.
crushing it.
Yeah, it's got to be a long-term commitment.
Yeah, it's like,
sort of
I've
thing.
spent the last 2 months getting an extra hour of sleep and drinking an extra liter of water a day. Now I feel much better. That's a lot to put into it.
Yeah, and it goes in levels. For me, I burned the candle at both ends in an extreme fashion. For more than a decade, I probably slept no more than 3 to 4 hours per night. And I couldn't keep that up. And especially when I started training, that wasn't going to work. I tried to make it work for quite a while, and it seemed okay for a little while. But with my horrible diet I had at the time, with my horrible sleep habits I had at the time, something had to give, or I wasn't going to get any stronger or any better or progress my climbing. So I've made small inroads to all of those things, and I've got a long way to go, but I'm making progress.
That's awesome.
I think we're probably ready for a break.
All right.
I need another beer refresher here. All right, break. What's up, everybody? Chris here. Pardon the interruption. I'll keep this short and sweet. Since this podcast started taking off and we've been growing it, you guys have been asking how you can help out. I've got 3 ways for you. Number 1, you can become a patron. That just means you give a monthly donation to the podcast, $1 and up, and you get something in return. And you can check out what those rewards are at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast. Best of all, we'll keep it sponsor and commercial free for you. Number 2, you can rate us and review us on iTunes. I know it's a pain in the ass to go to iTunes and do all that, but it really helps us out. At least that's what I'm told by the podcast powers that be. And number 3, perhaps the easiest way and the best way to help us out is to share us on your social medias. Anytime you see us post up a new podcast, please share it with your friends. Tag people who will really appreciate it or who need to hear the advice that we're giving. All right, thank you guys, and back to the show. Okay, we have returned. This board meeting is back in session, and I think you're up.
Yeah. All right, so my number 3, and this one's sort of vague, but for me it's been really important. And it's been being honest about my own motivations and just what keeps me psyched. This has been one of my biggest investments, and that's, yeah, man, because I don't know. There's some days I'm just not psyched, and there's some days, like, I don't know. Different things keep me motivated, and I think this is true for everyone. And there was so long that I tried to just stick with, I'd say things that I think other people wanted to hear.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it outside pressure that causes you to not be honest about it?
Yeah. I mean, this goes way beyond climbing as well. This is just life in general.
Sure.
Like, I don't know, it's easy to just kind of stick to the norms and you know what you're feeling, but it's kind of weird to voice your own opinion. But yeah, I'd say in the last few years I've started to realize more and more what I wanted or what I actually felt. And what's been awesome is the more open I am about these things, where I'm just like, you know what, this is like, I don't care if people think I'm ridiculous for like geeking
and by
out
open,
and loving
you mean
food.
open to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know, it's been fun. Like, the more open I am about things, like, I don't know, the more receptive some people are. Like, I've got a buddy who,
for sure,
me and him just talk, like, he's big on climbing, but he's also psyched on Olympic lifting and food. And we just geek out on such a nerd level of food. And it's awesome. Like, it's one of those things where I would never really talk with people about, like, cooking and food prep and stuff like that. But man, it's so fun to be able to, like, talk on this level with someone else who's so passionate about it and not afraid of, like, I don't know, seeming ridiculous or anything like that. For so long, yeah, I think the easiest way to say it is, I feel like I would only say things that I thought other people wanted to hear.
Oh yeah, I think that's a pretty common error. And how old are you right now?
27.
27. Yeah. See, you're still super young.
I've got so many more mistakes ahead of me.
No question. It's funny. When I was, you're way eons, light years ahead of where I was when I was 27, which is super cool to see. But definitely when I was 27, I was driven by this strange motivation that was connected to my ego and what everybody else wanted. And it was definitely destructive, really destructive. But yeah, I think being able to let go of that is a really mature thing, and being able to realize that what you're psyched on is okay. Like, just because the next person isn't psyched on that, it really doesn't mean anything. You know, who cares what they're psyched on? And I think that's the thing we all need to figure out, is what it is that motivates us, what it is that we're excited to do and truly passionate about trying or working on or getting better at or putting our time and effort and energy into. And if we don't find those things, you know, that's a little sad, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's pretty cool that you're 27 years old and already figuring out that maybe your motivations aren't pure all the time. Because I bet you ask most 27-year-olds and they think their motivations are 100% their own. You know, and I don't think that's the case.
Well, don't worry, I'm still fucking up plenty.
Well, yeah, I know that.
Spent the last month with you. I know plenty.
But we all are, you know, and I think that's the important thing, is that we know we're fucking up, and we know each other are fucking up. And, you know, the fact that you know you're not 100% right all the time makes it easier for other people around you to not be 100% right all the time. I think that's pretty cool.
All right, back to training. Man stuff.
Mine isn't necessarily training either.
Oh, man.
It kind of is, though. So what I wrote here is, I gave credence to far-fetched dreams, and I took the leap into this as a business.
It's a good one.
And it sounds fairly obvious, I think, for you know, for the kids of this generation. But I'm 41 years old, and I've been saying for a while now that it took me 40 years to get to my 20s. And that's how it feels, because when I was a kid, this was not an option. Like, making a business or making a living out of something that didn't really exist just wasn't an option. You didn't do that. Not in this neighborhood, not where I grew up. You worked in a factory or whatever you had to do to support your family and to support your life, and that was it. You know, that was your whole existence, was support your family. And I'm lucky to have a fiance who's amazing and believes in me, and a daughter who is stoked to see me, you know, stretch my boundaries. And I think that's pretty key to being able to do this. And I recognized that I was in a good situation. You know, I had injured my shoulder at work, so workers' comp was paying me to sit on the couch and have surgery and go through PT. And I had a great physical therapist who understood that I was a climber. Shout out Tammy. And so I had the time to sit and really build the idea of making this a business, and more than a business, making it a community and creating this, you know, this tribe of people who believed in the same ideas that I did. And it was a chance conversation with you at Miguel's one morning.
There were free pancakes, if I remember correctly.
There were free pancakes. You're exactly right. And then a month or so later, you said, "Hey, I'd like to, you know, maybe take you up on that offer." And it all started from there. And I think it's, you know, become a really cool thing already. And it's been a year. You know, it hasn't even been a year since I talked to you. It's been just over a year since I officially launched this thing as a business, you know, at the point where we're talking right now. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, hell, I've got 20 episodes recorded at this point, so you guys might get this when it's been 2 years, but you get the gist.
We're gonna spread these out.
So it's been just I felt like I was going out on a limb. It was scary. Like my fiance was in school, trying to get her degree, and she's gonna go back to graduate school for a master's. So we're by no means comfortably supported. So it was scary. And we were moving across the country, and my daughter was turning 18 and considering college and what she was going to do. And so scary times, but I stuck with my gut feeling that the mural painting that I was doing just wasn't satisfying, and it wasn't following my passion. And once I followed it, everything just feels a lot better, and that really feels like an investment. And in a lot of ways. So, I spent a lot of money investing in it. I spent a ton of money on equipment and, software and products and, t-shirts and everything, whatever, all these crazy things you need to make this operate. I've spent a lot of money on those things, and I've spent an inordinate amount of time with figuring out how to do it all, because I have a serious problem with control, and I have to, I want to be the person who has the artistic vision behind the website and behind the social media and behind, all the logos and the images that you see. And I'm not against someone else doing it, but I just can't hand it over. It's fucking hard for me. So I've invested a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy. And so far it's paying off, because you're here, and I'm super stoked for that. And all the people listening are here, and I'm ridiculously excited about that. So, yeah, I think that's a big investment that's really paying off, and I feel good about.
That's awesome. So to steal a question from Tim Ferriss, top investment for under $100.
Top investment for under $100.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I don't even know what I've spent on things. So, do you have one off the top of your head?
Rice cooker.
Your rice cooker.
Yeah.
That's a 27-year-old answer.
It's one of those things. I've got a couple of things like that. Rice cooker definitely is top of my list.
I've been thinking about buying a rice cooker.
It's one of those things, like, I have this same feeling about an electric tea kettle, because people for the longest time are like, dude, just get a rice cooker. Like, it'll change your life. I'm like, really? It's a rice cooker? Like, come on, how great could this be? Then I got one. I was like, okay, y'all were right. And I keep hearing the same thing about an electric tea kettle, and I love tea. And so I'm considering that one as well. But
I'm not buying it with the tea kettle, but not yet anyway.
Teach
But I
his own.
haven't been sold on the rice cooker yet. Though I'm really close.
You got the steamer basket in the top for all your veggies?
Yeah, I'm really close. And I got closer because I hooked up with Scratch Labs, and they're really into the rice cooker idea. And if you've ever read their books, their portables books, or any of the stuff they put out, they're really into the rice cooker. So I may end up going that direction, especially if I can find a small portable rice cooker that can travel on the road with me, since I'm on the road for the next 6 months, or probably the next 4 months when you guys hear this, or 3 or 2 or something.
Sure.
Now
that we've bought enough time.
Under $100. I was talking the whole damn time. I didn't buy anything. Best investment for under $100, I would say. Damn, this is a hard one. I've spent so much money on random things that have turned out good. Honestly, I would say probably this is totally a business thing, but I would say Facebook ads.
Really?
Yeah, I tried it out. I wasn't convinced. But I think if you have content that's good, and I think this podcast is good content, and I promote it right, I think those ads come back in the form of people following and people wanting to hear the next podcast and going back and listening to the old podcasts, and I think that's been super important. And I never spend more than $50 on an ad campaign. And I don't know why, it just seems like a round good number. So I'll spend $50 to promote a podcast, and it'll reach 14 or 15,000 people, and 2,000 of those people might download the podcast, but that's definitely several hundred more people than listened to it before. So I think that's been a really good investment in getting my an hour message out there, and just the whole idea that we're doing something different here.
Yeah.
All right. And I don't know if you guys have heard this podcast before, but you may know at this point that we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
Maybe don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build, 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 this time power, this time to build power, this time to build power, this time to build power. 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 This time to build. 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 This time to build.